I'm a member of the Montgomery County League of Women Voters, and I'm serving as tonight's forum coordinator on behalf of the League of Women Voters and the Montgomery County Council of PTAs, our co-sponsor. Thank you for attending this evening's forum with candidates for the Board of Education. Our first panel were 3 of the 4 at-large candidates, and now we're going to move to the District 3 candidates. The same format will be used. Each individual will be asked the same questions. They will be given a minute to formulate their answers, and we will move from one candidate to the other in a random fashion. So our moderator has stepped out of the room, so I can talk about who she is. Tanya Bowie is chair of the Asian American Political Alliance in Montgomery County and the founder of PWP Strategies, a Maryland-based political communications consulting firm. Through that work, she has managed and led communications efforts for state and county level campaigns across Maryland. She is also a contributing writer for Gender on the Ballot, a project of Women in Politics Institute at American University that aims to close the gender gap in political leadership. I appreciate everyone's coming in, including Tanya. I introduced you this time. So for the benefit of our candidates, appreciate if you would put your phones on mute. We are recording this. We will create a YouTube out of the recording and put it up on the League website. So you just need to give us a while to get that done. For those of you who have friends and relatives who are not able to come this evening. So I'm going to turn it over to Tanya.
Thank you all. Welcome back for our second panel with our District 3 candidates. We are going to hopefully take within less than an hour for the second session. So as a reminder, any voter can vote for a District 3 candidate. And we have here on the dais Ms. Sharon Creed, Brett DeResta, Andrew Frickman, Sally McCarthy, and Cassandra Sun. Welcome to all of you. So as a friendly reminder, please make sure to turn off your phones so we do not disturb our candidates in our video recording. We also have a timekeeper in the front, and she will be holding up signs. The yellow sign will indicate 30 seconds remaining, and the red stop sign will indicate that time is up. So candidates, you must stop at the end of your time so that everyone has an equal chance to respond, but I will allow you to finish your sentence. You may not save your time on one question and add it to the next one. Questions have been developed by the principal sponsoring organizations, and we will not be taking questions from the audience. However, we encourage all of our audience members to speak to any of the candidates after our forum. Each candidate has up to 60 seconds to respond to the question, and we have our candidates seated in alphabetical order. So but candidates will not be speaking in the same order for each question, to be fair. So we do have 2 microphones for you all. We ask that you share them. Also, it takes 5 seconds for it to turn on, so take a deep breath and it'll come on before you speak. So are we ready? Shall we begin? Great. So once I start the first question, the clock will start when you will speak, and again, you have 1 minute for your response to each question. So the first question we're going to start is curriculum-based approaches. What curriculum-based approaches do you support that could overcome persistent disparities in outcomes for Black, Brown, and other historically underserved communities? The first person to open up this question will be Ms. Creed.
For the Black and the Brown students, I would like to suggest to give them extra hours to study, even though we use the same curriculum. For example, before the school starts, we add 1 hour for them to have actual tutoring hours, and we add 1 more hour after school. So even though we have the same curriculum, but I think that will help the Black and brown students to understand better and improve their grade. Thank you.
Mr. DeResto.
Thank you very much. We have just seen 2 major changes to our curriculum. Elementary schools just changed in 24-25, and we just changed compacted math to a larger math in this term. I think what we need to do before I can say which one works the best is actually get some feedback on how these have been implemented and whether they work or not. It's hard to say we want to do this or that without those kind of data coming back. Experiential-based learning has been very successful. I know the previous superintendent passed it. It worked for her in Nashville, but we'll see over the next coming years whether reading scores, math scores improve. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Frickman.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrew Frickman. We see a lot of education gaps with historically marginalized communities, especially in the elementary to middle school transition. There are a lot of achievement gaps that start there and only progress further because math builds. I think a program easing the transition between elementary and middle school would be a great approach to bringing scores back up. 37% overall is just not enough across the county, and we need to set standards higher so we can deliver better.
Thank you. Ms. McCarthy.
Thank you for the question. I would support early intervention, resources that go into the pre-K to grade 6, looking at reading and math. We can't possibly sustain the regional model and expect our students to meet those expectations in the future if we're not looking at those building blocks. I also think we need to look at high-dose tutoring for our kids in high school and middle school within the school day, because we know the outcomes there work. And I think we really need to look at our resources that support K through 3 in the classroom, special ed resource teachers, staff support specialists, and math content professionals.
Thank you. Ms. Sun.
Thank you. I am very data driven. It's what I do during the daytime. A lot of the data exists around curriculums already. We do not need to reinvent the wheel. We do not need to create our own. I believe that what Brett mentioned about, maybe let's see how it's panning out before we reinvent the wheel again, because I know that's been a pain point for many teachers. And we can make small tweaks that help students who are underrepresented have better outcomes. That being said, early childhood education is one of the best ways to prevent these gaps from going on and being created. So if we get to students when they are 3, 4, 5, 6, and those early years, and set the grounds that way and make sure that everyone's being read to, because that makes the biggest difference in the world, we can have a very successful student base from there on out. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is on mental health. Mental health needs among MCPS students have persisted since the pandemic and are affecting classroom learning. How would you ensure students have access to necessary mental health supports? We'll start with Mr. DeResto.
Can everybody hear me? I don't have a microphone. It's okay.
No.
Okay, sorry. I'm Jewish and Italian, so I speak with my hands a lot, so holding the microphone while talking is a little more difficult than just talking. Oh, see? Told you.
How's this? Excellent. So mental health specialists. So we have been asked, this is probably our 7th or 8th forum, and we have constantly been asked how we are going to spend more money, how we are going to achieve all these different goals. What we saw over the past 2 months is that the county has, for the first time in my memory, said, we don't have the money to pay for everything. So we are going to have to be the first board in a generation to do more with less. As far as mental health, I think we are going to have to find mental health specialists who work in a regional model where we can go from school to school. But I think having more mental health specialists in each school is probably not going to be financially feasible, and we're going to have to go from there.
Thank you. Mr. Frickman?
Students are only at school for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours a day. A lot of mental health support needs to be given to the parents to be able to recognize issues early on. We see a lot of peers recognize issues and bring to the school administration or counseling. So I think really giving the resources. This science is already known. We have a lot of data to support this, that we need to give parents the ability to recognize and deal with issues, and then work in conjunction with the school on developing a plan for that student to move forward. It should be very individualized.
Thank you. Ms. McCarthy?
So licensed psychiatric social workers were added in the pandemic budget, and it's been unsustainable. In fact, it's on the chopping block right now, along with career and college counselors. I think, first of all, we need to look at our budget and look at what we fund within the schoolhouse and what is actually a public health professional, and come to the table with the county and the council and have a really honest discussion about the limits of the school system and what we can provide, what burdens we're putting on our families and our teachers in the school, and to figure out a solution so our students have access to those supports they need so they're thriving outside of the school doors when they are in school.
Thank you. Ms. Sun?
Hang on. Oh. Thank you. So our budget is our values. I think that's something that all of us would probably agree on. And the budget proposal cuts right now are decimating these services, which are ones that we desperately need. We need our counselors, we need our social workers, we need our psychologists. I know that there are many nonprofits in the community that would love to be assisting where they can, and sometimes the ways to connect with the schools can actually be very difficult. So I think if we get a better system in place for that, for students to, for nonprofits to connect with school programs so that we are doing it a more affordable approach, that might be a great way to handle it. Additionally, I think educating those in the community, students, teachers, staff, about early detection signs that they can look for issues that might be going on with their students and their friends and colleagues might be a really wonderful way to handle it as well. Thank you.
Ms. Creed?
I do think we should have the budget for the mental health, because the student well-being is very important to every family, and that is one of the main purpose for me to run for this election. Every school has a nurse room. We just need to give the nurse some extra training to watch the mental health of each student, and we do need to have some budget for that. And that is good for the student well-being. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is about immigration enforcement. Given the current concerns about immigration enforcement around our schools, what specific steps would you take to ensure that every student and staff member is protected regardless of immigration status? We'll start with Mr. Frickman.
Let me start with this. ICE in schools, it's not going to provide the benefit that people claim it will. Students are allowed to get an education regardless of immigration status, and MCPS does not collect that information. I think the part that we need to focus on is giving each child the opportunity of success and being calm and consistent. MCPS needs to follow the law, and it's the board's job to make sure that they do. I think that bringing students into an environment that makes them feel unsafe does not promote learning. And we really need to work with the county council and how we want to approach this across county services.
Thank you. Mr. DeResta.
So in California, they passed a law that said you cannot have both a mask and a gun at the same time. I think for Montgomery County schools, I think we should pass the same rule, that you cannot have both a mask and a gun and come on county property. We would have to work with the county council and the legislature to get that done. There's some confusion over who has jurisdiction at the moment, but I think that's priority number one, because not only is that horrible pulling these kids out of schools, but it's also damaging for their peers. As far as keeping ICE away, again, there's not a ton that we can do on our own. We do need to work with the county council and the county legislature to make sure that the students are safe. But most of all, we have to make sure that these families feel that they can send their kids to school in a safe and practical environment. Right now, people are afraid, whether they are legal or undocumented, to send their kids to school. And that is unforgivable in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Creed.
DHS recently changed to a new leader. I believe under this new leader, the ICE operation will be well managed. Because if there are criminals, so they have a reason to take them out of school. But of course, if the ICE come to the school, I will first keep the ICE out of the school. Then I have to ask them to show the document whether the student is legal or not. We have to, based on the immigration law, we have always followed the law. So we cannot operate unlawful. Thank you.
Ms. McCarthy.
No child or family should wake up in the morning and have to face what a lot of our community members have faced this year. I know MCPS has to follow the law, but it doesn't mean they can't educate their site-based administrators on what that law is and what types of protections, and empower school leaders and teachers to protect their students while they're on property. In January, as part of a community meeting in Burtonsville at a small elementary school that has an exposed playground with no fencing. And there were ICE agents that waited in the parking lot of the apartment building. And we were trying to figure out how MCPS could best protect those kids without pulling them out of recess every day. And I think part of that is educating our teachers and our administrators during professional learning week before school starts.
Thank you. Ms. Sun.
Thank you. As Sally said, this is not something that any of our students should have to worry about. They go to school to learn and grow and play, because that's how students learn best. And this is heartbreaking that we even have to talk about this, but I'm actually an advocate. I go on the Hill and meet with senators and congresspeople and their staff, and I had the joy of going on the Hill recently with a bunch of moms from Minnesota and Minneapolis, and they were telling me the impacts of ICE in their community and that we need to do everything we can so that that doesn't happen here, while following the law, of course. The front offices should know what to do. They should have their procedures written down, because everyone knows in a moment of panic, we're never gonna follow every step that we should. And that needs to be consistent across all of our schools, no matter how big or small, young or old the students are. As well as that being said, I do know from word of mouth that there has actually been never mind.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the budget. So in light of Montgomery County's current structural funding deficit, what are your qualifications for developing an operating budget for MCPS? We'll start with Ms. McCarthy.
So for the past 15 years, I've been involved with Montgomery County Council of PTAs, and most recently as their capital budget chair, but I've also worked on advocacy for a decade on operating budget issues. I can pull a budget, read the lines, I have ideas about this current budget. I have a background in a PhD in education policy. I've taught students, graduate and undergraduates, how to read local and state budgets. So I have some expertise in budgeting.
Thank you. Mr. Frickman?
I've been a student in MCPS. I graduated last year from kindergarten to graduation. I know how these budgets and how the allocations affect schools, but it's important to recognize that it's not a unilateral process by one single board member, and bringing other board members' expertise as well as how that money will be used would be really beneficial to ensuring that every dollar is going to our students. People pay their taxes, they expect the money to work for them, and ensuring that they do through a collaborative process, bringing everyone's expertise into view and how that money will be used realistically, I think is really important and will get the best bang for your buck.
Thank you. Ms. Sum?
So tracking data is what I do every day in and out, and money is data. And there are many people who are extremely qualified to do audits and make sure that money is going where it needs to be. And we need those specialists. We need forensic accountants doing an audit of the budget and making sure that where we say the money is going is where the money is indeed going. We also need to make sure that we are doing ROI tracking, which is something I love doing because I used to work in marketing, and that's how you justify your job, is by making sure that you are tracking dollars to every event and dollar that you spend so that you can say, hey, this turned out this way because of the money that we did. And I'll bet every taxpayer in Montgomery County would much prefer that to be happening as compared to how it is happening right now, because transparency makes everyone happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Creed?
I would like to create a position for an inspector because currently we have the budget is $3.7 billion. With this large amount of money, it's surprised we do not have any inspector. So with this one person, his sole purpose of the job is just to monitor how to use the budget. He can ask for the document, he can raise questions, and I think this investment will benefit to us, and he will help us to monitor how they use the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeResta?
So the question was, what qualifies us to oversee the budget? The budget is $3.7 billion, and then you add another $500 million on capital budgeting. I do not have personal experience with overseeing $4.2 billion budgets, so I want to be honest with everybody here what my qualifications are. I'm a small businessman. I've run a small business for 30 years. I've met a payroll. I also, during the day, am a political consultant. I do what's known as opposition research. So when you see the ad that says this person has spent $5 billion or voted for something that costs $10 million, someone has to find those facts. That's what I do on a daily basis. So I know what a budget looks like, I know how people hide stuff in the budget, and I know where the bodies can be buried. So 4.2 billion overseeing, not every day, but I can tell you what budgets look like and where all the money goes. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is still related to the budget. What should be the highest priorities in the county's capital improvements program planning for schools? We'll start with Ms. Sum.
Getting working air conditioning in all of our buildings, because if you are uncomfortable, hot, too cold, you are not able to learn. The neglect that has happened towards the HVAC systems in all of our buildings is despicable, in my opinion. I know I don't do well hot. That's why my hair's up, because I'm very warm. And this room is temperature controlled. Now imagine walking in from one classroom and it's 80 degrees, and walking into your classroom on the other side of the building where it's 65 degrees. No one has the time or energy to dress for multiple climates in school. Add that on top of you're hungry because lunch isn't for another hour because of how your schedule is set up. And that student is not going to be learning anything that day. And if that's every day, we're losing a lot of educational time for students to be thriving. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Creed?
I would like to use some budget to hire more teachers and also train those teachers. That will help us to improve the performance of the study for our students, because currently, academically, our students is declining. So we need more teachers to help them to go back on track. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeResta?
So I agree with Cassie. The HVAC systems in this county are the first order of business. According to the county itself, we are $700 million behind in fixing air conditioning and heating units. I don't care how good your teacher you are, how good a lesson plan you have, if you're sweltering in the summer and freezing in the winter, the kids will not learn. Of deeper concern is that in the most recent budget discussion on the county council, they just took $36 million from the budget for HVAC to help cover the gap that we have in the budget request. So we were already $700 million behind. They advocated for some of that money, and now some of that money is going to fill in the cracks. So that would be my number one priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McCarthy?
So 3 things. First is obviously HVAC. That's on everyone's mind. Second would be making sure that current projects that have just been approved, big scale projects, make it through the budget. And then making sure that the elementary and middle school boundary study, which is on deck, looks at consolidation and closure with a careful lens, engaging the community, and then finally looking at external funding sources. We've heard a little bit about public-private partnerships. I'd like to see that explored, and using that as a launching pad for more conversation with the county council and how we can partner on that on a larger scale.
Thank you. And Mr. Frickman?
Well, I like that Mr. DeResta brought up the $36 million transfer from the capital improvement budget. We need to make sure that every dollar in either budget is going to either the now betterment of the students or the future betterment of the students. And focusing on that, you can't learn in a environment that's too hot or too cold. That's not acceptable, but we've let it happen at this point. So making sure that every dollar allocated by the county council going to the betterment of the students is important. Over 90% of the budget is salaries. So if we're gonna make budget cuts, it's gonna happen through salary or positions. And it's really important to make sure that we have the infrastructure to support student learning.
Thank you. Our next question is on civic engagement. What more should MCPS do to promote engaged citizenship among its students? We'll start with Ms. Creed. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
Yes. The question is, what more should MCPS students do, what more should MCPS do to promote engaged citizenship among its students?
I think currently they are doing great, but we would like to suggest to add more activities and have some games in the school, so people will love this country more. Thank you.
Mr. DeResta.
So one of our students is clearly very much engaged. But I think one of the things that we need to do, they have some wonderful programs. They've gotten students involved through the poll watchers. 2 of my children have gone through that system, got SSL credit for going every day during voting to watch the polls. But ultimately, I think we need to narrow down a little bit the SSL. We've given these kids a wide range of things that they can volunteer for, and some of them, quite frankly, are a little loose. My older child got a number of hours for going to Bethesda Big Train and being an usher. I don't think that's engaging in civic engagement. I think we ought to narrow that down and encourage kids to do more in their community, whether it's being involved in the election system or helping those in need in our community.
Thank you. Mr. Frickman.
We have so much talent and opportunities. We are so close to DC. We have so many resources here to provide students with civic engagement opportunities. I can't list the amount of organizations that make democracy and make civic engagement their priority, and allowing students to engage with that and working with the school and those nonprofits, working together to have SSL partnerships and ideas like that. That is how we're going to have a civically engaged graduating class, but also throughout the years. It can start as early as elementary school, learning about civic engagement in class and really focusing on that, and then building that up through middle and then high schools.
Thank you, Ms. McCarthy.
Actually, this is a passion of mine. When I was an instructor at the University of Maryland, I worked with students in the College Parks College Public Leadership Program on civic engagement. I think MCPS actually does a fabulous job creating programs for students, like the Student Climate Action Council. I've been involved with that organization, helped out with the Leadership for Social Justice program, which is now wildly successful at Whitman High School. But I think we actually need to have a very large conversation in our community about devices and phones. We can't start the conversation about civic engagement if we're not putting down our phones and looking at each other in the eye and teaching our kids how to say hello and how to shake hands and how to actually engage with their neighbors and their community members.
Thank you, Ms. Sun.
Thank you. There are many ways in which to do this, many of which come down to how can we actively get students to see how important civic engagement is. I just saw a really lovely class demonstration done where they had the students in the classroom flip the typical Congress ratio on its head, so 80% men, 20% women, so they flipped it, so it was 80% women to 20% men, just to highlight how important it is to be running for different offices and how your role is really truly being shown based upon your values and the things that you care deeply about, and you bring that to the table there. There's also many nonprofits in the community that I'm sure would love to have students engaged in it. So making sure that we have that community engagement and those programs in place so that students are realizing, hey, there's this tiny little nonprofit that works on this itty bitty little problem that I care deeply about, and helping them connect with each other, because sometimes a Google search is not going to help you find that. Thank you.
Our next question is about hate and bias incidents. What specific actions would you take to improve how schools recognize and effectively respond to hate and bias incidents? Let's start with Ms. McCarthy.
So there's no question that incidents of anti-Black hate, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia in the past post-pandemic years have really gone up. I would say the first step for MCPS is actually being compliant with state law in terms of training. That's a good place to start. I think engaging communities, outside communities, bringing them in to look at things like curriculum implementation, what that curriculum looks like, to actually look at what the teacher training looks like, and also when incidents happen, to name what the incident was and make sure that communication is clear and that community is engaged in resolution and discussing the incident.
Thank you. Ms. Sun.
Thank you. So first I want to say this is something hard that's going to be difficult to rein in. Unfortunately, we have a leader at the top of our nation who makes it feel like it's okay to do these things. And I don't believe that students should be having someone like that as a role model. All of that being ignored, much of this is stuff that can be taught because that's how you learn to be racist. You're not born that way. So a lot of this can be done with teaching and educating people and having windows and doors opened via different educational materials so that students are exposed to other cultures, races, ethnicities, what have you, so that they see that they are not the only person walking through the world as they are. And I know that this is very difficult to do because teachers have limited time on their hands, and if we could have an entire curriculum based upon making sure that all of our students see themselves and their neighbors reflected, I think that's the best course of action.
Thank you. Ms. Creed?
I think the purpose of the school's education is to teach students to not discrimination other races, and the students should be taught to be friendly with the other students. So if there is a case reported to the principal, and the principal should step in immediately and to resolve the problem. And also the school should create some games and for the students to love each other. They should play together and to reduce the hate among the races. Thank you.
Mr. Frickman?
Well, let me start with this. Hate and bias have no place at MCPS, and the school community deserves to know how schools are responding to it when it does happen. I think a strong partnership between the police department and the MCPS is really important. I really like one of the points that Sally brought up, which is engaging with these community organizations to ensure that factual, non-biased information is inserted into the curriculum to ensure that the perspectives of the community are represented in a factual way. We've had the esteemed opportunity to engage with many members of the public to hear their concerns with the board, and ensuring that every community is represented in a curriculum, and then deserving, and people know how to respond and how the school is responding is really important.
Thank you. Mr. DeResta?
So I was at dinner with my wife and 3 kids, and my youngest son said, "Dad, I want a gold chain." I said, "I'm from Staten Island, I get to wear a gold chain, you do not." And being the funny kid that he was, he said, "But Mom, if I get a gold chain, I'll wear a Star of David." And my oldest son, without looking up from his meal, said, "You don't want to do that, you don't want to bring that kind of attention to yourself." And that was one of the first moments when I thought about running for this office. Anti-Semitism, hate, bias incidents are way out of control. What can we do about it? There are a few things. Sally mentioned teacher training, but the kind of teacher training that actually happens in person. As an adjunct professor, I've taken teacher trainings online. They don't hold your attention. You wind up doing 10 things instead of actually paying for the training. JCRC also recommended peer-to-peer education, getting students who have experienced firsthand hate, bias incidents in the school, talking to their own peers. Thank you.
Thank you. We've reached the last question of our panel tonight, given that board members decide on matters of policy, provide a specific example of how you personally manage a conflict and how you reach consensus. So we'll start with Mr. Frickman.
Yeah, so there have been, through MCPS, there have been many instances where I learned stuff. There was an incident I can point to in 9th grade, which was my freshman year, and it was also my first year of living. And we had a Muslim, there was anti-Semitic graffiti, and there was a big conflict in the school about how that was managed, and some students were very disillusioned with that and brought it to the school administration, and I think really engaging with the community and how that was responded to, and I don't think the school did a great job. But I want to ensure that the student body has the ability to resolve conflict of policy individually.
Thank you. Mr. DeResta.
So I've spent 30 years in politics. Politics is what I do. I worked on Capitol Hill. I've worked on campaigns. I've worked on campaigns from everything from dog catcher on up to president. I've worked in 44 different states. So people talk about, hey, I don't want to see how the sausage is made. I've seen the pig come in, I've seen the sausage get made, and I've seen it get sold at the other end of the spectrum. I understand that to get legislation passed requires more than a promise to an audience and quick wit. It requires building coalitions, working with people, getting the job done. And I think because of that experience, I will be very good on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sung.
I mentioned I worked in data. I believe that there is data out there for almost every problem that exists. And so I always say this at work about 300 times a day, that we should be making data-based decisions. So I would love to make all the new policies. I believe sitting on Governor Moore's desk right now, there's a school phone ban policy waiting to be signed, hopefully this week. And that would have been my #1 policy to implement. As Sally mentioned, they're terrible for students, in the classroom especially. But I love building consensus, I love working with people, I love listening to others' ideas and building from there. And all of those kinds of things are things that you need to get policies passed, and making sure that everyone is involved in that decision, because every person's background helps them bring their lived purpose to light, and not everyone has the same experience when it comes to how policy will impact you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Creed.
At my son's school, one day there was a black kid got bullied by other kids. So my son just walked to him and comforted him and say, oh, everything is okay, don't worry. And then in the future, they make friends with the other races. So I think different races could peacefully be together, and we should try to reduce the bullies at school, to make every student friends. Thank you.
And Ms. McCarthy.
So resolving conflict and building coalitions is actually one of my favorite things to do. And in the past 4 years, I've worked with MCPS, Montgomery County Council of PTAs, school leaders, and community members to form something called a school construction impact team, where we bring together folks in a school area that's under construction, and we work to solve problems. Sometimes I've been in meetings where it's silent. Sometimes I've been in meetings where we're working really hard and we're working through issues. But bringing people together to solve problems is what I've been doing for 15 years with my volunteer work. My background's in higher ed, and somehow I found my way into K through 12, and it's why I'm running for the Board of Education, is to build coalitions and solve problems.
Thank you so much. So this concludes the end of our concludes our panel for this evening. So please give our candidates a round of applause. Thank all of you for your time and dedication, and thank you for running. So as we close out the event, I have a few more remarks. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County and the Montgomery County Council of Parent-Teacher Associations, we thank all of you and all of our candidates for joining us here in person tonight. We also want to give you all a gentle reminder to please don't forget to pick up your copy of the League's voter guide at the league table right here, if you need one. This guide is a comprehensive source of information about our candidates and voting. It's also available online and also through the 411 platform. Also, as you might have heard, there's been a ballot issue. So due to a printing ballot error, and if you requested your mail-in ballot on or before May 14th, you'll be getting a replacement ballot in the mail soon. So we encourage you to follow those instructions on the replacement ballot and return it properly. So we also want to assure everyone that the existing safeguards are in place to prevent duplicate voting, even if you already mailed the original ballot. So please don't forget to vote by mail, use that replacement ballot, vote early between June 11th to June 18th, vote on primary day on June 23rd. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.